The Republic of Lewis podcast. Welcome to this month's Republic of Lewis. I had to leave the comforts of the studio to go out and do this recording. The person that I'm recording was well worth it. Such the nicest person you'll ever meet, and that will come across in this interview. The only way to describe this person is they defined a generation. They revived a music genre. They inspired many musicians to come after him, even musicians that were around at that time. He had songs in films like Goodfellas, TV shows like The Simpsons. The times that his songs are used in media is unbelievable. He's been referenced as one of the most important people in music of the last few decades. Just been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's the gentleman, it's the legend, it's Donovan. So here we go.
So you've just been introduced into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. How did that come about and what did it feel like?
Well, I was nominated 2 years ago, and then I was in 2012, which is rather short time. But I think a lot of the people behind the scenes, and these are the artists mainly, and producers, and the creators that are now members of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, because when you become a member, you've got to vote. So I think they've been thinking about it for decades, or at least 25 years, because you have to actually have released your first record at least 25 years ago before you'll get nominated. So that's the rules. So 2 years ago nomination, and this year in. It's a singular honor. I'm very pleased of all the honors I've had, and I've had a few awards in different countries. This one seems to be the chief one around the world, and it's a wonderful thing. I was very pleased to go to Cleveland, and John Mellencamp was my chief supporter, it would seem, and he presented me, and we sang Season of the Witch together on the stage in Cleveland, and so it was something, quite something.
And John Mellencamp, he actually states that you were one of his inspirations before, hasn't he?
Yes, and yes, John says many times how my music influenced him, or shall we say kick-started him to get into the music game, but mainly to write songs, because the songs that I write and wrote and continue to write are very curious and unique, and they're very oddball, and I break all the rules and put this bit with that bit, and I have a lot of fun. And so I think I encouraged a lot of singer-songwriters to begin that for that reason. Also, my chords in the early songs were very simple, Catch the Wind, Colours, that was very easy to learn to play. Many people say that they learned to play guitar from my early songs. John did, definitely, he said. We met some years ago when he invited me to join him for the middle section of 6 of his gigs, because he wanted to honour me because of that. In fact, he'd seen Paul Simon and Garfunkel do it by inviting the Everly Brothers into their tour at one point. So John did the same for me some years ago, and we talked about music, and he explained how he had started with my music. Yeah, so it was really good that John introduced me to the Rock Hall.
2012, it really is kind of like the return of Sunshine Superman, with the Gibson now bringing out the new guitar they've made for you as well. That is a kind of long story coming, isn't it, though? Because was it Kelly, your guitar, years ago you lost?
Yeah, there's a story been kicking around for years. What happened to Donovan's J45 Red Cherry Gibson, an acoustic guitar, very cheap to buy, in 1965. But I recorded all my what we would call now the classic 60s hits, and all the recordings from late 65 all the way through to 66, when I got a custom guitar made by Zemaitis, the Greek. Tony Zemaitis in London went on to make classic guitars for everybody, famous, of course, for the Rolling Stones electric guitars. But I was an acoustic guy, so Tony Zemaitis made me my first acoustic, and it was the Blue Moon. A moon-shaped hole, purple wood, inlaid mother-of-pearl stars, a real beauty, a new sound for me. And I carried the little J45 with me in 1970, nostalgically. And then one day, in those days, in 1970s, in a stadium in America, a fan walked in and walked out with the little J45. Years later, it hasn't returned, but you know, I went and bought one, a copy, I should say, a copy, which I would say not a copy, but another one from 1965, the same model, and gave it to Gibson, because Gibson, when they heard the story, they said, "Why don't we make one, the classics signature guitar of Donovan?" I said, "That would be good, but you got to put labella silk and steel strings," because I didn't use Gibson strings. The very sound of Donovan is these labella silk and steel, which Joan Baez turned me on to in 1965. They're softer, they buzz, and so the Donovan guitar style comes from two things: the J45 and the labella silk and steel. So labella have heard about this too, and they're happy. Gibson have heard about it, and they're happy. So right now in Montana, a guy called Robbie is moving into the second model. He's made the first model, the J45, Donovan J45, but he's working on the second one because we're trying to make it as close as possible. Now, Sunshine Superman had that guitar, and Sunshine Superman 2 years ago, the album, was when I was nominated to the Rock Hall. That album particularly was cited as being the album that initiated the psychedelic revolution. It was began in late '65. It was begun in late '65 and it was completed in May of '66. So that's quite early. It's about a year before Pepper, and I guess well before Jefferson Airplane and the San Francisco guys, who all became friends of mine. And even on Sunshine Superman, there's a song which tips my hat to Jefferson Airplane, who I didn't know then, but I met them later. And the Fat Angel is Mama Cass of the Mamas and Papas. So Sunshine Superman had that guitar all over it.
Some of your guitars have female names. You do have a little story why they're called female names, acoustic guitars, don't you?
B.B. King, what is he called? Lucille? No. Is it called? What's he called? B.B. King calls his guitar. We should be able to call it up. Is it Lucille? Yeah. All right. B.B. King calls his guitar Lucille. Other guitar players have female names for guitars, and for many years I drop into some of my concerts the story, I wonder why. Guitars, is it because of the shape, the acoustic guitar shape, which is pear-shaped? Is it because you can go to bed with them? You can't go to bed with a piano, but often a guitar player, songwriter, will fall asleep writing a song in a hotel or home with a guitar in bed. So is that why? And so I would have some fun with the audience. But down the country, near Waterford, Gordon Campbell's house, we were having a party. And Woody Harrelson, the actor, was in the country at the time. And I got to know Woody at this hotel, actually, the Stamper Hotel in Dawson Street. And Woody and I and Gordon Campbell and my wife Linda, we hung out together for a weekend down in Waterford. And Woody's a fantastic actor, but then when I met him, he'd just become a fantastic football player. I don't know whether you know that story. Celebrity soccer in the UK, he did the winning goal, which is amazing. But anyway, Woody's a pal, and Woody was there, Gordon Campbell, and a bunch of friends, and I was telling the story, why, asking the question, why does a guitar have a female name? And I was about to talk about the shape, you know, and one of the gals in the party said, I know,